Actually, we are about to start. We have 30 people. That's great. A lot more people are going to chime in. But just to begin, my name is Liliana and I go by Lily. I'll be your moderator today. I have a mic, so we're going to pretend all of us are in one room and everybody's sitting in the couch and that we're on one stage so we can feel a little more at home, more like we are in a big event. So, to begin with, we have our three panelists. Please introduce yourselves.
Ali, you get to go first.
Hey, I'm Alejandro. I am here to share my story and my success journey, the struggle, all that, and I'm here to build community. So, hi, everyone.
Jimena.
Hola a todos, my name is Jimena Cortez. I currently work as a QA engineer, originally from Mexico, and I'm excited to be part of this panel.
And hi, everyone. Donna here, one of the Dreamers in Tech co-chair. I'm also a web developer and a current member owner of a consulting agency.
Nice.
Happy to be here.
All right. Great. So thank you so much for being here, every single person. We are very excited to have you. As you can see on our pinned comment, Dreamers in Tech right now is in partnership with Techqueria, so we're very happy that they gave us the space to share with you and that we actually are able to fundraise through them. So they are a big help to grow our community. And we are a group of tech enthusiasts that happen to also be undocumented or documented or dreamer in the tech industry. So our mission is to empower dreamers to achieve success in tech through the community building, facilitating access to resources, cultivating dreamer success stories like we are here, and while also bringing representation awareness of our community into those tech spaces. Basically, everything Techqueria does, but also emphasizing our movement for the undocumented community. Our vision is a community that supports and empowers dreamers to achieve professional success in tech. So anything related to that, if you're interested, you want to be an ally, if you want to involve yourself, please let us know. Follow us on LinkedIn. Follow each one of us on LinkedIn and give us any questions that you have. And if it's personal or your career path, we are very happy to answer you. And we do have an interest form. So if you go to our website, dreamersintech.com, you will see the interest form right there. And we'll loop you back into our Slack channel. And that is where the community grows, where you can share anything that you have in common with people nationally. And hopefully we can help you also uplift your story. So with that said, we are finally going to start the conversation with our three panelists. We're going to start with, of course, please share about yourself. How did you get to where you are today? Jimena, can we start with you, please?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I was born in Mexico City. I came to the U.S. when I was 9. And all throughout high school, elementary school, I always knew that I was undocumented and I knew what that entitled. My last year of high school, I applied to an internship program and I was able to do that program with my student ID. And that's kind of like the moment that changed my career path and how I would further my career. Through Urban Alliance, I got a scholarship that made it possible for me to go to college for the first year. My parents told me, I still remember my dad's words where, pues vete, go the first year, and then la averiguamos, a ver qué pasa, right? And for me, that meant that it wasn't gonna happen, that I was gonna go the first year and then like that was it. But I gave it a shot and I knew what I wanted to major in. I knew that I wanted to go into something related with tech. I actually failed my first Java class. And at that moment I was like, oh, I should probably change careers. I'm paying a lot of money. I should probably just switch. I went to my advisor and she's like, yeah, you should do it. Maybe coding is not for you. And that moment when she said, maybe coding is not for you, kind of like hit me. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're not going to tell a Latina no. Like, I'm going to prove you're wrong. And 4 years later, a lot of hard work. Both my parents were working. My dad had 2 jobs. Then they later opened the restaurant, and that kind of helped me pay for the rest of the school year. It was a lot of ups and downs, and I could spend hours telling you about every single adventure that I faced. But I'll tell you the happy path. I graduated, and as soon as I walked off the stage with the fake diploma that they give you, I went and gave it to my mom, and I was like, this is for you. You guys did it. Now I have to figure out a job. So at the time, I already had DACA because of the Deferred Action and Early Childhood Arrivals from President Obama. So I was able to apply to jobs, but the question that will always haunt me will be do you now or in the future require sponsorship? It was a lot of navigating how to explain what a DACA permit is to companies, because a lot of companies didn't know. But I eventually ended up going through a few interviews, a lot of technical, and I was like, no, this is crazy. I landed my first job. I faced a couple of problems at the company because of diversity and inclusion. And 2 years later, after getting promoted, I landed at my new job as a QA engineer. It's been interesting, but I'll tell you more later.
Great. Thank you so much. And it is so great to see that you are succeeding so much and that there is so many different paths to get there. And of course, to keep going even if people say no. So we can also hear a little bit more from Alejandro, please.
Hey, y'all. Thank you, Jimena, for sharing your story. Every time we do this, it just brings me back to where I started. So up front, I'll start by saying that I'm definitely, I can say this confidently, I'm the oldest one in this group. So I have been through a lot of the different phases of the undocumented movement. I graduated high school in 2006 with really no idea what would come next. And it's really funny, I was reflecting on this with my uncle the other night, how in high school, I never really had a successful experience as a student. I wasn't motivated because similar to Jimena, I always knew I was undocumented, but I had a very, I don't know, it was detrimental. It didn't motivate me to do well in school, even though I knew I could do school if I wanted to, but I was just like whatever, let me go do something else, you know? And in 2006, I became more politically conscious when in 2006, I don't know, the immigrant community, George Bush was trying to do something. And then we all got out to the streets and we said, nah. And that was kind of the beginning of when I gained some more political consciousness. And I went on to attend community college here in San Jose, California. And I had a lot of success, but never really like sure where it was going because again, I didn't have papers. And back then there wasn't any semblance of hope. You know, back then the only hope was like marry somebody or shit, I don't know, but it was hard. So I just did school and I prayed a lot. And I ended up transferring to Berkeley where I studied ethnic studies. So I got deeper and deeper into the social movement side of things. I never really came to tech until later in my career. And that was after years of just taking L's, y'all. Like the Dreamer movement, we've taken so many L's. We've taken so many like opportunities where the DREAM Act could have been passed and it was a no, and opportunities where statewide there could have been different things that happened and it was no. I don't know. I'm trying to remember the exact moments, but I remember in 2012 when Obama got reelected, and after realizing he wasn't really going to do any type of immigration reform, I wanted to advance. I wanted to just keep going forward and not get bogged down by the lack of success. And that's really when I started opening my eyes to what was around me. What could I do? I thought of doing law school and it was super expensive. And I was like, you know what, as an undocumented person, I don't even know if I can like be admitted to the bar. There was an undocumented guy in California who was in litigation because he had already graduated from law school. And so there's all these things happening to where I was like, nah, that's not my move. And also just in the process of knowing myself and my personality, I knew I wanted to do something where I could always be myself, where I wasn't going to be limited, where I wasn't going to be judged if I'm not wearing like a suit and a tie everywhere I go. And that way I had a very organic like move towards technology, because this program that I worked at UCLA was opening its newest cohort. And that cohort was going to be based out of San Jose, Silicon Valley, and they needed a coordinator. So, you know, me being a nice guy that I am, they asked me if I was interested in this job, and I said, yeah, sure, almost by default, you know, again, continuing to stay in the undocumented youth movement. And yeah, inevitably, because it was called Silicon Valley, all the partnerships that we saw asked us if we were trying to make this a technical program. And we were like, technical? No, we're just trying to like bring light to the fact that there's all these like multi-billion-dollar influential companies in our backyard. And we're over here like poor, you know, living with $9 an hour. And in that year, there was a lot of stories of how people were living in encampments and in RVs. And so the poverty in San Jose was just being highlighted in the news. So that was kind of the narrative in that moment. And by way of researching opportunities for this fellowship program for these students, I myself, as the leader of that work, was getting invited through a lot of doors that I never really expected to walk through. And so there was like a very like organic spark that, you know, within me, I was like, man, I love this stuff. Like, not only as a principle of like social justice and economic mobility and inclusion and diversity, like that was automatic for me, but also on a personal level, when I started meeting engineers and developers, just like on a one-on-one basis, and you know, out of my own curiosity, asking them what they do and how they do it, I really turned towards it, and like the student in me, you know, was really hungry to know more. And a couple years later, I ended up leveraging a lot of that experience to pitch a hackathon for undocumented youth, which we ended up hosting at Netflix. Shout out Netflix Inc. Super dope for giving us that opportunity. I realized that, you know, the creative aspect of technology is really like, that's really where the sauce is, to be honest. And that's really where Latinos and people of color can really bring it. So I advocated for that. And we had a successful hackathon, 3 days, 100+ people. And that really just opened the floodgates of all the other networks, all the other Latinos and people of color in tech. Liliana was with, you know, we were part of that team. And 2 years after that, I leveraged that experience to go back to grad school and study educational technology at Harvard, and recently graduated. And so that's how I ended up in this current role that I'm in right now, which is here, I don't know, sharing my story. So that's like the SparkNotes version. There's a lot of a lot of details I left out, but
yeah,
shout out Lily.
We have our booth open later, so feel free to also drop in and ask on any of the journeys that Jimena and Alejandro has shared. And of course, because of all of this educational side that we're talking about, there is so many ways to get into tech. And so here we have Tona to give us yet another path to get into tech.
I hope everyone is excited to be here. We are excited to connect with you all. I guess I'll share a little bit about myself. Originally from Mexico as well. I came here with my sister and my mom when I was 16. I think being in Mexico, my parents took the hard decision to come to this country and just find opportunities here after having a lot of financial struggles back in Mexico. I was in Central Valley, California for 2 years. And then after that, I moved to the Bay Area where I went to college. And attending college for me was very exciting. I knew I always wanted to be an engineer. And I was doing pretty well. But that was also around the time where the DACA decision came around. And unfortunately for me, I did not qualify for DACA, which was pretty challenging. And I think that's what took a bit of a toll for me being in college. And now that I reflect on it, I think I had a little bit of depression after that, just misfortune of not having that opportunity. But yeah, I think the struggle was mainly not knowing what other solutions were there. And I mean, now I think about the other opportunities that exist, but at the time it was a different reality for me. I think some of the things I struggled with the most were like mental states and just emotions. I spend like a little time trying to figure it out, where do I fit in this community, in this country, like what are my opportunities, and just avoiding my situation and figuring it out. I think took a while. And over time, I finally decided to reach out for help, connect with the community, and really try to figure out how to solve, maybe not how to solve my problems, but find solutions or other opportunities to what I could do. And I think that's when I chose tech. I chose tech because it's in high demand, because there's high pay. I love to solve technical challenges. I know there's a freelancing opportunity. I also wanted to be part of like a culture of innovation and technical advancement. So there are a lot of things that I like about being in this industry, and that's when I decided to join a boot camp. So for me, that was a doable solution. And coming from this non-traditional path as a software engineer was very exciting. It was one of the best experiences I had, and I was able to get some job offers. But again, having that not having a work permit made it a little bit challenging. Within that, I found Dreamers in Tech, which is a great community, and I have found a lot of passion to continue to connect with others and work to grow professionally. And through all of these connections, I've been able to have internships. I was part of a fellowship recently, and now I'm doing my own work as with a consulting agency. So yeah, excited to be here and share that with you.
Hey, thank you so much. And all these comments, everybody sharing, thank you so much. This really means so much to us because that gives us a platform to continue bringing awareness to this issue. And thank you, the panelists, for everything that you are sharing. And I know it is very inspirational in the times that we need it right now. But of course, we also want to touch on the challenges that you have experienced. I know each one of you already have shared a little bit of that because it is part of our journeys. So is there any specific challenge that you have experienced in the tech industry while navigating it, while getting the job, any specific that you know could help somebody else? Can we start with you, Tona, since you then?
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, I think just one of the challenges was just like, well, personally, was just kind of like the mindset that I had, just moving away from like being a victim to like really finding like ways to just solutions or looking for the opportunities that actually exist for me. So like I just mentioned, like finding freelancing as an opportunity, like working as an independent contractor, it's also an opportunity, and just entrepreneurship into all that, like creating your own business, it's possible. And that's just on a personal level. I think if I was to speak for like when I was like coming out of boot camp, I really wanted to work directly with a company. I think a big challenge for me was just gaining professional experience. I think it was very hard for me without a work permit to like get into apprenticeships or internships. I think those are very popular ways to get into the tech industry when you don't have a lot of experience. But of course, it's not impossible. I did found an internship over the summer with a startup, and I think that was like through connections. But I think one of the things I do want to mention is that like we as immigrants, we do come to this country like ready to work and ready to grow, and we have the right mindset, we have the right attitude, the passion, and sometimes we just need to be given the opportunity to flourish. So for me, that came in having that internship opportunity, and I think that was when like my eyes opened and I'm like, oh my God, this is possible. We just need to find different ways to go about it. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. And that is very particular to our community. So we see that throughout their journeys. And Alejandro mentioned this. Can you please share a specific one? Because I know you have so many to share. We'll have some time later, but please think of one specific time that you want to share with us, a challenge that you've experienced in tech.
Yeah, one thing that I've experienced is that we, I don't know, we're raised with this like mindset of like, there's only one path to be successful. And in technology, there's so many multiple paths to be successful in this field. And so that's been challenging for me. And the thing about my personality is every time I realized like, oh, wow, this wasn't that hard. I just had to ask this person, or wow, this information wasn't, I didn't need to go to an Ivy League to find out some of these things. It frustrates me because it's like, oh my gosh, where have our mentors been? Where have our educators been? Where have our peers been? So if I could put a word to it, it's the lack of networking amongst ourselves, and the lack of sharing that insider information amongst ourselves. And that's a struggle because there's so many of us doing this work and we just don't even know it. And so that's one of the beautiful things about Dreamers in Tech, is that first and foremost, we get to meet each other and we get to like demystify, right, the complexities that we imagine are in the industry, and we get to build communities. So that's one example. On a more technical side, the world of STEM, right? When you're in an educational program, I experienced it at Harvard in my program, and I had so much empathy for anybody I've ever heard talk about imposter syndrome in STEM, because I went in there super confident, like I know my stuff, and there was days where I walked out of my lab just like wanting to cry in Spanish. So we need to share the love and share the information amongst each other.
Great, thank you so much. And of course, you have a pet right behind you. There is.
It's my cat. She's
Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing. Now, being inside already in the tech company that you are at, Jimena, can you please share a specific challenge that you've had?
Yeah, I am doing +1s on everything that Donna and Ale mentioned, and I think you did a really good segue into the imposter syndrome. The very first time that I experienced it was in college, right? But like I mentioned, both of my parents were working to get me through school. And the day that I got the offer from the company, I'm gonna be honest, I got my first offer for $70,000. Both my parents were working, and my dad had 2 jobs. They were making less than $60,000 together. And at that moment, when I was holding the letter, I was like, holy shit. Like what is this, right? So I kept going, I kept pushing. And then when I was in a project, when I actually got into a team and all of this, I was the only Latina. I was the only QA engineer of the team with a group of older white males. And I was sitting there and I would ask myself, what in the world is happening? Am I really supposed to be here? These people have years of experience. And one moment that comes to mind was when they asked me, so what's going to be the release plan? I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know where I pulled it off from, but I was like, we're going to do this. We're going to monitor. We're going to do this, and we're going to do that. I walked out of that room and they were like, oh, good job with this. Good job with like coming up with this. I don't know how I did it. I just pulled it off. And then I went back to my desk and I was shaking because I was like, what is happening? Am I really supposed to be doing all of that? And I think that a lot of us, no matter at what level we're at in tech, whether we're technical or non-technical, we are in all these spaces where imposter syndrome is always there. Somebody asked me once, how do you get rid of it? And I'm like, I don't know. If somebody has a recipe, please send them my way. Because even now where I'm in rooms and leading teams, I still have that moment, like those little moments where I'm like, what am I doing, right? And with everything going on with the permit for DACA people, we're like, what's going to happen next? Or am I going to have a job? And how do I explain it to that company? But seeing stories and having a community is what keeps us all together. Like with Donna's story and how he's been doing it without that permit, like that inspires me to figure out a way. And the community that Ale mentioned, like we're always there for support. Like whenever people add me on LinkedIn, I'm always like, yes, let's jump on a call or let's go grab coffee or anything, because that's like the only way we're gonna stick together, like being there for each other.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And there was a lot of pluses for everything that I already mentioned. And even the community right now is uplifting your story and saying that, you know, jokingly is your ancestor, but it's really your talents that you have, and all three of you. So it's really great to have you all speaking from your experience. And of course, now we want to know, how do you find your ways to give back to our community? And after that, we're gonna go to Q&A, asking a couple questions that I'm gonna come back and ask the team here. But please answer this question first. So we'll go to Alejandro. What is another way that you give back to your community?
Yeah, most recently, I've been focusing on my family, honestly, because I have a big family and I have a lot of cousins that are like graduating high school, going into college. And I could tell that they're curious about what I did and what I studied, because I'm like 10 years ahead of them. I don't know, I feel like they don't have the people around them to tell them like, look, this stuff's amazing, keep pursuing it. Like I have a cousin who was in a robotics club at his high school, and he was really good at it, and he quit because he thought it was like nerdy and lame. And I was just like, bro, do you realize what working in Arduino could do for you? You know, like, so just empowering that narrative more amongst my own family is really important to me right now, especially, like I said, I have a lot of little primos that are coming up. The other thing is I really try to stay connected through Dreamers in Tech, and try to see the entire like operation, and try to like look ahead and find ways that we can further like institutionalize this work in whatever way possible. So I try to you know, do it in different moments and in different instances, but definitely my work with Dreamers in Tech is probably one of the biggest ways that I stay connected and I give back or give forward.
Great, thank you. Can we hear from Jimena? Because you have, you know, you just came from outside of Dreamers in Tech, and now you're here with us, and you are part of our community. You're growing, you're helping us. What else do you do?
Yeah, I do a lot of solo volunteering in Chicago, where I go to schools, and now with the pandemic, I do a lot of virtual teaching. Different different organizations that have either a summer program or something to teach kids how to code. I introduce them to something super basic, which is Python. They are making a little soldier go and collect gems. It's like super interactive, and the kids love it. I've done it with plenty of organizations where they ask me to volunteer, and I just teach kids how to code. And I also Nuevo Foundation. They are based in Seattle, but they do workshops in person for little kids. So I hope to bring Nuevo Foundation to Chicago soon.
Thank you so much. And that is great. We might need a list of that for those that, you know, are searching for other opportunities. Can we have Donna next?
Thank you. Yes, I think for some ways that I'm giving back to the community right now is definitely the opportunity to be one of the co-chairs of Dreamers in Tech, and just very fortunate to have this great team, everyone that's contributing to our movement and just really trying to connect our community. I think that's what I'm very passionate about, and doing this is just very important for me to connect the undocumented community in tech. I think there are just a lot of undocumented professionals already working in the industry. There's students and allies, and just like Ali mentioned earlier, we can all benefit from sharing our experience, sharing our knowledge, supporting each other, and then just finding ways to thrive. I think that's what the community is mainly about. And just excited to be part of it. And to help connect individuals from across the country and in all different states, and then just working to succeed in this industry. I think it's also important to me to create spaces like this, just spaces where we can feel comfortable to have conversations and just introduce our community to the tech industry. I think there's many ways that people that are in power or companies can help the community. Sometimes they might not know how to go about it. They might have questions, and I think those are the conversations that we are interested in having. And even if we don't have all the answers, we can probably help you figure it out and really try to find ways to give opportunities, to extend opportunities for undocumented individuals, extend opportunities to get professional experience, and then just give back to the community.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. I think these are the questions that everybody was very excited about. So I'm very happy that we had the time here. I will go into the Q&A, and actually, if the people would like to request to be in the queue, you can also be in the video and you can ask the question yourself. I do have 2 questions that I saw that we really want to touch on, but I know Barbara Resendiz is here to be added. Let's try that. I think you requested it to go in the video. Did it go through? Am I doing this right? Okay, well, we figured that out. If Adriana, you would like to, Adriana with the little leaf, would like to also hop in here, and if you want to ask your question. But for now, I'll ask it for you. It's directed to Alejandro. When you mention things that you don't need to go to an Ivy League to find out, what are one of those things? Maybe mention 2 that you feel like, well, I could have learned that somewhere else. I've been learning that. So what is something that made you say this?
Yeah, I was talking about very technical examples. We had a lab class where we were studying like the history of all these little microcomputers and experimenting with Arduinos and Raspberry Pi and Go-Go boards. And I learned that those actually exist at the elementary and middle school level in a lot of schools in the suburbs here in the Bay Area, but also out in Boston. So that's what I mean by like, wow, if only we knew this, if only somebody told us, right? Because like I'm learning and experimenting with it and, making things with it, in a graduate program as a way to create and further the educational experience that already exists for like privileged kids in the suburbs. And in our communities, for example, my cousin, right, who was experimenting with this stuff, he was ready to quit because like it wasn't cool for him. So that's like the disconnect that I was referring when I made that comment. Yeah, that's one really long example. Conversely, there's a lot of things that were super dope about being in an Ivy League school. The resources, the connections with MIT, it definitely expanded my horizons in crazy ways that I never expected to. So I don't want to discount that part of the experience either.
Because you paid for it. So yes, of course. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, of course, we learn a lot of things, but there are so much that we get to learn from you. So as I mentioned, please also go into the booth after this session ends. We have another question also for Tona, is how was navigating financing a bootcamp as an undocumented person? We know that there are opportunities there, but there are some that you do have to apply or that are too expensive. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. For me, it was a pretty big decision, and also trying to find a good boot camp, right? Because I did wanted to come up with like the best education coming out of it and opportunities afterwards. Nowadays, I did this 2 years back, and there were a lot of options. I think there's definitely even more options now. And one of the things is that, yeah, everything I learned in the bootcamp was super valuable and it was a great experience. I think everything can also be learned without attending one. But you really need to figure out what works for you, what your commitment is. And then choose from the different options. There's some that are not so expensive. Most of them cover most of the time a lot of the same material. But connecting with those that have already gone through it is pretty valuable just to get their insight. And at the end, for me, it was really going back to family and taking loans out just to manage to pay for that. It is a struggle, and I think, yeah, it will be interesting to see to start advocating to get scholarships for our community as well. So I'm very interested in having those conversations with the organizations with the educational organizations. But for me specifically, it was going back to family to get financial aid, and also from savings that I had. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. And honestly, everything that each panelist is sharing here, I know can be its own conversation because there is so much to learn. And so coming from that, right, getting that support and everything else, I know Natalie Long mentioned to Jimena that one, you're very inspiring, and two, that the beginner's mind is very refreshing that she said particularly, keep bringing it to those old white men. So what do you have to say about that, Jimena?
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times during meetings where they're just like, but why? And I'm like, well, you want to know why? Let me tell you why. Right. And I just start going. Sometimes it's really hard because they like older people that tend to be male because it's engineering is white male dominated. Like, and especially if they're senior title, they will think that they know all the answers and all of that. But sometimes being as a QA, they don't. I like telling them no. Like this, your code doesn't work. Here, get it back. So it's like it boosts my ego of like, yeah, I'm telling you no, but like it's because it doesn't work, right? So it could be hard at times, but it's definitely helped me grow as a professional and learning how to say no, it doesn't work. It's not my fault. It doesn't work. Like it's yours. It's your color, right? So yeah, it could be hard, but interesting.
Great, thank you so much. I'm sure, as some people have shared here, that they have their own share of experiences like that. So it's really refreshing to hear all of you stand here today and share that for those who haven't. If there is any more questions, please feel free to ask them, and we can also get somebody on the screen to ask a question if you would like. We'll be right here. Something that I personally wanted to know from all of you, of course, is why is this tech industry so important to you, right? And we all know that we are here for Techqueria, that is a hot thing to do and sometimes very, very difficult. So what is the thing that keeps driving you that you're saying this is the space that I need to be in or that I want to be in? So can we start with Donna?
Yeah, I think for me, like I mentioned before, I think I was just very interesting. Like I wanted to be an engineer from the beginning, so just trying to solve technical challenges, which is of interest to me. I think I'm also lucky to be now here in the Bay Area, and like Ale said, like this is the mecca of technology, and I wanted to be part of it. I think it's important to be represented in this industry. There's not a lot of representation, and those companies are driving all this innovation. I think they can definitely, we need to be part of it. So that's also what's important for me. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Then can we have Jimena? Alejandro, we'll save you at the end because you talk a lot. No, I'm kidding. We wanted to hear from Jimena, and then we'll talk to Alejandro about that question, but also particularly in the intersection of education and tech. So Jimena, can you please answer, why is this tech industry so important to you?
I like learning. I have been doing a lot of like pen testing workshops recently, where I teach myself how to code, how to pen test a different app and do the network traffic and all of that. For me, I find it super interesting to do those little tiny like security hacks. And for me, it's just like I want to keep learning and want to keep learning it. But more recently, with all the data leaks that have been happening and how Facebook and Twitter play into politics and all of that, it kind of motivates me to keep learning and keep building products that are affecting our communities. For me, it's more of like I want to make sure that the products we're using are for the people that we're building them for.
Great.
Ale, now you get to talk all you want.
Yeah, no,
I'm sorry.
I think
I have so much to say about this topic. That's why I
it does. And actually,
yes,
Alejandro, besides the main question, I also wanted to add something that Catherine mentioned is that for those interested in the intersection of education and technology, what are some opportunities for growth that you see in this industry, such as the type of career, company, or startup? So you got some time now.
Yeah, For sure. First of all, like why I find technology important and interesting and fascinating is that as a country, as a society, we're like in our third wave of experiencing media technology and how it changes us. However, we're currently in a phase where we're experiencing a type of media and technology that is like crack on steroids. Like it is consuming us, you know, as much as we're consuming it. So from like a philosophical standpoint, I understand that we're in the early stages of the internet. We're still literally in like the first or second inning, right, of what the internet and media technology is going to do. So to me, it's important that we're a part of it. One thing I learned from Carla Monterroso from Code 2040 a couple years back, she said the last time that the economy was revolutionized at such a scale was during the Industrial Revolution, right, about 100 years ago. And Blacks and Latinos and people of color were still coming out of like slavery and you know, coming out of like really, really bad poverty. So it's happening again and again. We're being left in conditions of poverty. So it's really important that for future generations, you know, we take interest in this field because it really is transforming the economy on a global scale. Now, the other reason I'm into it, on a personal level, you get to be creative, you get to make things, and there are so many ways to do it. There's so many languages. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would come back from Boston with knowledge of how to build 3D models in Unity and how to, you know, give them more like, I don't know, reasons to make VR. Like, to me, I fell in love with it. I took a VR course at MIT, and I learned how to use C#. I learned how to use, you know, a couple of different languages. I'm still in the early stages of developing that, so really exciting. And then the third thing about education and technology, to be honest, it's anywhere and everywhere. You just have to have the right mindset, because every company, every major company is now realizing that even their own top engineers are not fully educated and fully equipped with what's going to happen. So that intersection of education and technology is in more places than you think. I think that we're still thinking of schools, we're still thinking of education in terms of like the didactic education that we receive, where you sit in a classroom and someone talks to you and, you know, you just like a repository of information. But education is really not happening that way anymore. And it hasn't been for about 10 years. It's very personalized. It's very like internet media based. And if you can find a niche or a way to, you know, step into that and find what your own passions are, there's plenty of companies, there's plenty of ways to get involved. One example for me is I'm involved at the XR Hackathon at MIT at the Media Lab, and I'm on their leadership team because, like I said, I have previous experience putting on a hackathon. So that to me is like how I'm practicing that intersection of education and technology. And yeah, sorry to give you such a broad answer, but there's a lot to it.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, I appreciate that everybody's giving even broad and really specific from your experiences. As I mentioned, we'll be in the booth afterwards, after the session ends in like a minute. So feel free to always drop by. Alejandro has so many stories to share, as he's mentioned. But also Tona and Jimena, you can always reach to any of us in LinkedIn, right? Oh, we have Barbara now. Yeah, would you like to speak? Go for it.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, sorry, I wanted to make just my comment on Ximena's experience that she had, you know, early on. And I've been in IT and tech world for over 20 years. And so when I first started, I know exactly what you were feeling, Ximena, where you're like not only the only Latina, right, but also the only woman there. And so trying to get your point across, or trying to have just your speaking, right? Like people just kind of look at you and you do feel a little bit intimidated and you feel like, wait, what am I doing here, right? Because I did experience some of that. So I just wanted to share that, you know, just keep doing what you're doing. And it's important that, you know, we have these conversation so that we have some place where we can heal from some of the bad experiences and we may come across, because that may not be the last time that you may come across some bad experiences in meetings or dealing with people. You may come across that again. So I just wanted to share to, keep doing what you're doing, because I think it's the right way. And I'm so glad that, we have these webinars, right, to uplift us, because it's very uplifting to hear everyone here speak. And that's pretty much all I wanted to share.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. It's people like you that have been able to get in there first and paving that way. And we are very happy to have you around and other people who want to mentor us. We are developing a mentorship program for Dreamers in Tech. We are still growing, so we are highly grateful that Techqueria has allowed us to converse with all of you today. And this chat is like on fire. We are so happy to have all of you. And even you, right, Barbara, you can also share that maybe it wasn't this easy before to share all this information and make this connection. So this is
true.
A revolution itself, that we can connect each other throughout the country, even people from Mexico and other countries also, internationally, I guess, at this point, that we can share our resources for each other. So thank you all so much. Technically, the session is done, but we can continue chatting here. And whenever the panelists needs to go, no worries. We will continue chatting at the expo booth session, and we can continue asking the questions there. Thank you so much, Barbara, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, we are very excited to be here, very excited to continue the conversation. So make sure you join our expo booth, join our community in Slack, visit our website. You just need to fill out the interest form. We're excited to connect with anyone that wants to have any type of conversations, or if you have any resources, or if you have any questions. I think we want to be active. We want to connect with others and share those resources between our community. So excited to learn from all of you.
Yeah, thank you. I guess technically we have to go. So yeah, we'll be at the expo. No one's kicking us out. There's no timer, but thank you so much again and forever. We will have another event also talking about thriving in tech, similar conversation, different panelists as well. So of course, as we continue to grow this community, we can have more people, we can hear from more people. So please tune into our website so you can see the next events. We have one upcoming on Tuesday, October 20th. It will be at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So of course, we'll try to add as many people as we see right here on the chat. You can always come back to the chat and add people once we're gone. Just so take your time, do whatever you need to get these connections, but also just thank you in general. All right, thank you, Jimena, so much. I know you're also working, so I appreciate you taking the time.
For sure. Gracias.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.